always has to be a shot at somebody.
No.
They're never clean.
They have to run. That's the only shot they have.
They do it for 82 games. We're about to find out.
He already has shown what he's capable of.
Did surprise me. I thought we were going to hang in there.
This makes me think that we do need to be humble.
I actually think you're the only one who deserved that beating.
Well, yeah, Sherrod.
Well.
There it is. There it is, Harrison. I was waiting for it.
Here we go.
Celtics with maybe one of the best wins of the year. Who knew on a Monday night? A little Monday night game of the year action, win of the year. It's up there, Sherrod. Jimmy Toscano here with Sherrod Blakely. Celtics with a 120-112 win, led by Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum chipping in, Derek White, Payton Pritchard. All the usual suspects are back, Sherrod. And this felt like one of those games where Celtics weren't going to let this one go. Honestly, no. Give the Suns credit, and they've been fighting all year. One of the best Suns seasons in a long time too. Who also would have thought that? And this was a good win for Boston. Which, by the way, on a Monday night, the TD Garden fans were. I mean, this hearing it through the TV. This place was up. This place was loud. I think everyone's starting to realize there's something here. I think the diehards have known it for a while, but the casuals, as they say, Sherrod, with Tatum back now and Brown still playing at MVP type level here, whether you think he's the MVP or not, in my opinion, you can't argue that he is in that conversation. And tonight he drops 41 points, goes to the line 21 times. Not quite Bam level from last week, but getting to that line like nobody's business. And Celtics pull off a big win here, Sherrod. I want to kind of start at the end when they go down by 3 and Brown inside, outside at the line, and give Tatum some credit too on the transition bucket there. But thoughts on this one? Thoughts on how the Celtics pulled this off?
Well, I think, Jimmy, you're spot on in starting at the end to bring us to where we are right now. And the cool thing about this game, and the one thing I think many of us really weren't sure, was how would Tatum and Brown handle a close game down the stretch? Would there be some friction? And by friction, I mean not them hating each other or anything like that, but just indecisiveness as far as who should take the shot and things like that. And there wasn't any of that. The thing that we know about Tatum and Brown that has been proven time and time again, Jaylen, very good at attacking, getting to the rim. Tatum, very good at playmaking in addition to getting to the rim. And it seemed that they're figuring out, this was the first time I think they've been challenged since Tatum has been back, where they needed to play the roles that they're great at. And they did a masterful job of that. I thought Tatum, his playmaking, really from the very beginning of the game, set the tone in many respects for how the Celtics were able to really stay in this game. Even when they went through the lulls where they weren't making shots, his playmaking was still very strong, very crisp. And Jaylen, as you pointed out, 21 free throws. That's as clear an indicator as there is that you are being super, super aggressive, and he was being rewarded for that in this game. And when you put those two things together and you're getting contributions from other guys, you're going to get a quality win, because this Phoenix Suns team is going to make you play. If you're going to beat them, that's exactly what has to happen. You're going to have to beat them because they're not going to beat themselves. And it's one of the many reasons why they're having so much success, because they're just not making the kind of mistakes that frankly lead to losses. Whereas the Celtics, they're doing the things that you have to do to keep the winning streak alive. And frankly, it seems like a long shot, but them getting the number 1 seed in the East is not nearly as far-fetched as a lot of people want to believe. They got some work to do, and they don't get a chance to play head-to-head with Detroit, but they're going to make it interesting. There's absolutely no doubt about that. They're going to make it interesting down the stretch here.
Absolutely. You cannot count this team out right now. I'm sure Vegas has already caught up to it, and so you're probably too late if you were a betting person. Not saying you should be or whatnot, but regardless, I think a lot of people now see what the Celtics team is capable of. And Sherrod, you said it a few seconds ago or a minute ago, whatever. This team's not going to beat themselves, and that's been the case throughout this year. I mean, they protect the ball better than basically any team in the league. They're smart. Joe Mazzulla has them playing hard, basically, 99% of the season. It feels like, there's been a couple of stinkers out there, but it's you're not going to go 82 for 82 on the effort level, unfortunately. But you cannot question this team's heart, character, effort, energy, smarts, I would say. I think they've all been playing above their levels in some capacity for the most part, right? And then you add ho-hum Jayson Tatum back to the mix. And yeah, there are still going to be some growing pains with him. There are still going to be some situations where maybe he would have elevated a little bit higher. Maybe the shot would have fallen. Maybe he finishes the drive. But more often than not, you're happy to have Jayson Tatum out there on the court. I think that's safe to say. Tonight he gives you 21, 7 and 4, 8 of 18 from the field, and finishes a game high plus 11. So even when Jayson Tatum isn't filling up the points side of the stat sheet, what he does to facilitate, to make his teammates better, to contribute on both sides of the basketball, that's why Jayson Tatum is Jayson Tatum. And I think obviously you have to hope that comfortability and that physicality that we see from him, we'll see a little bit more often. I thought in the second half he was a little bit more physical. I thought a couple times in that third quarter early on, he took contact, he drove, he scored, in the paint. So it's not just settling for those threes. He is taking them a little bit too much maybe right now. But again, I think that's all kind of to be understood at where he is right now in his recovery. And it's an active recovery, right? I mean, he's not going to tell you he's 100%, I don't think. And I don't think anyone who's watching is going to, but I think absolutely you take this version of Jayson Tatum at this point in his, recovery from that Achilles. So a lot of good things to like tonight. And Sherrod, Jaylen Brown in this game, consistent throughout, got hot early on and got hot late. And he got to the line, I think, was it 12 times? We got Joe Mazzulla up at the podium here.
Ties for 41 points, I think, really. He made a big-time steal. We were down 3. I think they cut it to 1 where they called a timeout there. Had some great deflections. Thought we were going to get the challenge. I thought it was just a well-rounded game on him on both sides of the floor.
Joe, obviously his points are down a little bit since Jayson came back. How can he continue to be himself?
Talking about
he's been
Brown
all year while also helping Jayson get integrated and find a rhythm and all the things that you guys need to do with him?
I think the most important thing is just continuing to be aggressive and give the game what it needs there. You saw that tonight.
Give the game what it needs.
Answers your question with his ability to get out and transition, his ability to get to the free throw line, his ability to make 2-on-1 reads. He's one of the big reasons why we've gotten to the point that we have, and it's important that he continues to do that for us, and as we continue to grow and develop as a team. And you kind of saw the balance of that tonight. I thought it was a great balance of our pace and transition, our attacking, our dribble drive stuff was great. Our 2-on-1 reads for each other was great. At the end of the day, we just got to continue to play the right way, give the game what it needs, play as a team, and for Jaylen specific, it's continuing to just grow his game, and he takes that challenge on.
He's had his frustrations with officiating this year. Obviously, he gets to the line 21 times tonight. He said he has studied officiating and how to get more free throws throughout the course of this year. Is that a conversation you and him have had about how you can get to the free throw line more consistently? And, what goes into that?
No, he studies the game. He's just a student of the game. He's a student of getting better. He cares about it. It's between him and Sherrod, his position coach. But really, I think just Jaylen's an innate competitor who finds different ways to get better, and that's one of them. And I think he's taking advantage of it.
Jordan Hood before the game said they really wanted to go after you in terms of creating turnovers. So what did you see from them, and how did you adapt to that?
Yeah, their ball pressure is great. They do a great job pressuring the ball. They do a great job making you fight for every catch. They do a great job sending guys on drives. But I thought we handled the pressure well. I thought we made the good 2-on-1 reads. I thought we got some great looks. But they're one of the toughest teams in the league, in my opinion. And you have to really bring it when you play against them. And they had 8 offensive rebounds. We had 7. A couple turnovers that we could clean up. But I thought we handled it well.
Joe, the first 8 minutes of the fourth quarter, you guys gave up 24 points. The last 4 minutes, no points, no field goals, just 2 points, 2 free throws, no field goals. What did you see shift for your guys' defense in that time? I know there's some variance in just the Suns making in general.
Yeah, I think it was a couple. We gave up a transition 3 off a turnover. We gave up another transition 3. We gave up an offensive rebound. We get it to the free throw line. So I think it was just a combination of our offense impacting our defense. Not many turnovers at the end of the game there. Doing a good job in our shifts. And then keeping them off the free throw line and getting the rebound. Honestly.
And then with Devin Booker, you guys doubled him more a little bit in the second half, threw extra pressure at him. What's the challenge of keeping sort of your defensive structure intact? I mean, naturally it's not going to be intact because you're throwing guys off where they would normally be, and also like keeping the principles you want on defense when you have to double a guy who is getting as many shots.
I mean, that is one of the principles. I mean, that's part of what we do when we have to do it. And I thought Payton did a great job on Booker there at the end of the stretch, making sure. And I thought, anytime you go to an adjustment, there's always another side of every situation. And I thought the time called for that. I thought our activity was really good, and we rebounded out of that pretty well also.
Joe, I mean, you knew this would be a tough game. I mean, you beat them pretty good in Phoenix. Now they have Booker. They're a good team. Like, it's got to be a more rewarding win. Just not only that, coming back in the last 4 minutes, your guys are down 4, and that's tough to dig yourself out of a hole when they come back and take a 2-possession lead. I mean, that's got to be more rewarding.
I mean, I think they are one of the toughest teams in the league. I think they bring they force you they bring the best out of you, and then so I thought we said that. And again, it was good for us to earn that. We had to earn the win, and we had to earn it through our defensive playmaking. We had to earn it through our offensive execution, and so. That's something that we have to continue to get better at. And but like I said, I think you're right. I mean, we knew it was going to be a tough challenge, and it's a credit to our guys. I thought they answered the call to the challenge.
And then the final month, I mean, what do you want to see in terms of? I mean, it's a difficult schedule. I mean, you got it. I mean, what do you want to see? I mean, do you like games like this? Would you rather the schedule be difficult to challenge you guys?
Honestly, I have never really thought of it. I mean, I think it's just get ready for the Warriors. Take these 15 possessions that we have to get better at. Watch them, figure out where we got to get better, and kind of move on. I mean, I think playing against any team is tough. Every team has a chance to beat you. To me, we just want to maintain our identity of who we are, what we do when we're at our best, and then continue to get better.
Similar line of questioning as Jack. In crunch time specifically, what do you see as the keys when you guys switched up coverages to taking away those pull-ups from Devin Booker?
I mean, we put 2 on the ball. So with that, you have to have great pursuit, to get back to 5-on-5. You have to be able to rebound because you're in a disadvantaged situation. It's a 4-on-3 behind you. You have to be able to get out to shooters. They subbed and put Allen in and took Goodwin out, so they had more shooting on the floor. So we were able to put 2 on the ball. We were able to make it back to 5-on-5. We were able to rebound. We were able to keep them off the free throw line.
And what specifically do you see in terms of Payton's execution against Booker?
Yeah, I just thought he was physical at the point of attack. Didn't give up any rejects. Booker's always looking for rejects. Did a great job forcing him in the screen. Did a great job getting back to front so that we could keep it 5-on-5 even though we were up a little bit more. And so, he's done a great job. Everyone talks about his offense, but I think he's done a great job taking on, defending shooters and defending good players at the end of games.
Joe, you went with Sam for a good stretch in crunch time there over Derek. Was that what did you see from him in that lineup? Was that a size thing defensively for you? What kind of led to that?
He had 5 fouls, and every time there was a stoppage of play, we were on the defensive end. And so I wasn't going to put him in the game with 5 fouls. Not that I also trust Sam and think he could be great for us. We have a lot of guys that I would put in at the end of the game, but that particular situation, most stoppages of plays were on defense, and so I just wasn't going to risk it at that time, and I thought we were playing pretty well.
Joe, you've been saying a lot lately, the past couple of games, about giving the game what it needs. Why is that now something that's become a talking point for you?
I guess I was tired of saying 2-on-1 reads, so I just came up with something different.
When you're adding new guys and all of that stuff, is that message? Is there something more to that message of like, hey, we've added another great player? There's a lot of not questions, but like discussion about how everybody fits now with the addition of another great player and having played all season long. So when you talk about giving the game what it needs, is there an added message to everybody like, hey, whatever it is that we got to do?
Yeah, I think but that always changes. It changes over the course of a season. It changes when you're playing well. It changes when you're on a 2-game losing streak. It changes when You trade for a player, it changes when you acquire a player, it changes when a guy who's hurt comes back, changes in the game. Tonight, half the stuff we ended up running, we didn't talk about pregame because it just changed. Their pressure was different. They went to different, and some of our lineups were different, and so it made sense to go to this, and we took advantage of it. So I think it's just having an awareness. I think you never want to be put in a box. We have to continue to give the game what it needs, make 2-on-1 reads, play as a team, make the right play, and be physical.
Joe, one area of Jayson's game where he hasn't really skipped a beat at all is his passing. Just what kind of impact is having him and his passing ability in the lineup?
Yeah, I'd say that and rebounding, defensive rebounding was good for us. Part of the reason we were able to go to some of the more aggressive pick and roll coverages is we have more size behind, and that helps. And so, his defensive rebounding and his passing versus different coverages has been good. And so because of his passing, you have to change up coverages sometimes. So I think he's really taken advantage of that. Also thought he had some great physical drives, in both halves that we were able to get downhill for layups or kickouts. So, just continuing to get better at that.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Give the game what it needs.
All right. That is a talkative Joe Mazzulla after a big win. The Celtics reporters had a lot to say tonight, as they should. Sherrod, I think it might be the dog days of the season, or what do you ever call it, like Gary alluded to here. But these games matter for this team right now. It doesn't matter who you play. It's about getting yourself right? And every opponent is going to offer a certain level of challenges. But what did Mazzulla say? They're going to look at I forget what number he said, 10 or 20
15
plays. 15. Okay. So right in the middle, they have 15 plays that they can get better at and apply them hopefully to Wednesday's game against, again, Golden State, which is going to be, it's always a fun one when Golden State comes down. Fresh off of I think Kristaps Porzingis 30-point game, Sherrod, tonight. So
yeah.
I don't know if that means he gets Wednesday off or what, but he's been playing well. And another interesting wrinkle to Wednesday's game. But the Warriors, Steve Kerr, who I really can't stand, Curry, those guys are meeting the Celtics at a time where they might be, as crazy as it sounds, Sherrod, they might still have their best basketball left to play. And I think tonight was kind of a good example of that, at least in spurts, right? I mean, you could see how Brown and Tatum are getting a little bit more. Oh yeah, I remember this, 1-2 punch we had here. And you could see Brown really stepping up defensively, I thought, especially in that fourth quarter. And, Tatum, again, he's working into a little bit, but Brown tonight, I think, is the main story. 21 free throws for him, 10 of 20 from the field, 41 points, and continues to sort of pace this team. And I think, you mentioned it off the top, Sherrod. How would adding Jayson Tatum, really affect things or affect Jaylen Brown's game? And I think maybe it could have even been Bobby who asked it off Mazzulla in a way at the beginning of the press conference, just how he's been able to sort of continue on or adapt or play his game with Tatum jumping on, and not jumping on and making things worse, but jumping on and just making things different in a good way. And so I think you got a good example of that tonight and how those things can quickly coexist. And I think if you were worried about this team gelling or meshing, whatever word you want to use, I think this is a good example of not needing to really be too worried about that.
No, I don't. Here's the thing. I think sometimes people have a ridiculously short memory and forget that these guys have won a championship together. So they not only have they know how to play well with each other, they know how to play well with each other and win a championship. And I think what we're seeing now, and to be very transparent, they're getting back on the same page a lot faster than I thought. I thought it would be maybe 5 or 6 games into this where we would start to see some signs that they were kind of being back to knowing how to play well with each other. But they've been doing, I mean, they were doing that after basically the first 2-3 games that they played together. And as far as Tatum is concerned, I mean, it basically took 5 or 6 shots missed before he would get into his flow as a scorer. But the one thing that has been steady, and this is something Joe Mazzulla touched on, was Tatum's playmaking. I think it has been just phenomenal at this stage of his return. The way that he is not only getting others involved, but it seems to be spreading to the other guys around him who are embracing that that need to just don't necessarily take good shots, but take great ones. There was a sequence in the game where Jaylen Brown had dribble penetration, went baseline, had, I thought, a decent shot, not a great one, but a decent one. Passed it to Nimi, who had, I thought, just another good shot at the rim, who then swung at the Shireman, who had a wide open three. It was a decent shot, pass to a good shot, pass to a great shot. Those are the kind of sequences that this team really needs to, I think, do a really good job of just building off of this going forward. And Jayson Tatum has a lot to do with that. His ability to not only score, but also be a legitimate threat in terms of playmaking. And as Joe Mazzulla touched on, also the rebounding and the defensive rebounding specifically. That's such a big deal for this team because the Celtics have been a pretty good rebounding team this season. But Tatum gives them another dimension that allows them to do some things that go a little bit above and beyond what they've
obviously
done.
Started the game 10 free throws in the first quarter, finished with 21. Was there something about the Suns' defense you saw that made you more aggressive, or something you saw differently that led you to, draw more free throws? The defenders, like, what led to this sort of surge?
I approached the game the same, just physical, getting downhill, playing off 2 feet, and they made the call tonight. So,
was there a point in the game you realized that you were going to be getting those calls? Like, was there a point in the game maybe it was your first 2 free throws, first 4 that you were like, okay, like this is gonna work tonight?
I didn't even think about that. I just came out and was aggressive. What I think about when I had a ball is just be aggressive every time you have it, and then live with the result. So, I was physical. Maybe they didn't help as much because our personnel, we got obviously JT out there, so maybe it's less of a shift guy because you don't want to leave him open. So they gave me opportunities to play, and I just did what I normally do.
Jaylen, how much fun are you having this season? It seems like you're kind of having a blast out there and just having a good time being yourself. How much are you enjoying this moment?
One question?
It's been a great year. I'm extremely grateful. All praise to the Most High. Just the approach from the beginning of the summer to where we're at now. I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of myself. All of the above. I've always felt like I could, be one of the top players in the world. Given the opportunity, and I feel like I got to display that this season. So now the focus is just get ready for the playoffs. It's kind of like my mentality now. Stay healthy, but I've had a great year. I'm extremely grateful. I'm grateful to my teammates, and it's been fun.
Jaylen, you on one of your streams, I believe it was, where you mentioned the observance of Ramadan has given you some clarity in how you see the game. How can you explain how that's impacting you? What that's led to on the floor? It seems like you've been really focusing on making passes, making those reads, and can you kind of dig deeper into that?
I'm not sure how to best answer that. I think Ramadan brings great clarity in general. In terms of just one who's on his own on a journey just to, spiritually grow. And I think that translates to the basketball floor. So I think that's fair. But I think life is about just seeing things as clear as possible. Sometimes you let emotions get in the way. You let other people, or other things that you maybe can't control get in the way, whether it's on the court or whether it's not on the court. And the goal is to just, be the best version of you and get rid of as much of that as possible. So in life, when I pray for clarity, and then on the basketball floor, it's the same thing. Like, put my emotions to the side, manage my emotions of the game. Don't worry about the refs. Don't worry about, if something doesn't go my way. Your goal is to kind of see it and read the game as clear as possible. So I look at those two as very similar.
Jaylen, obviously you were confident that you were capable of playing this level from the beginning of the year, but do you feel like you've also improved from the beginning of the year to now, just given the new coverages, the responsibilities you shouldered?
Yeah, for sure. And I've been able to be in this, in the role where I'll be able to kind of control things, and everybody's kind of playing off me. I've been in those roles seldom over the years, but this year for an extended amount of time, I've been able to, be in that position. And then it's honestly, I feel like I still have a lot of room to grow. I feel like even now, over the last couple of games, I've, adjusted my game, and then I'm still continuing to get better. I think my playmaking ability, seeing the floor, taking my time, all of that stuff is still continuing to improve. But it's honestly, it's my first opportunity in my career where I've been able to do this for an extended period of time. And obviously, regardless, people are going to have their critiques and their criticism, but it's just it's a completely different flow when people play off of you or when you play off others. It's two completely different things. I know, from people watching the game, you just think like you just roll the ball out and everything's supposed to work. Great players are all supposed to fit together, but it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you got to take a back seat, or sometimes you got to, play more off ball. So everything shifts. But this year I've been able to kind of like play at my own pace, and I've been kind of being able to control my own destiny.
Interesting.
Jaylen, it's 2 days left. How are you feeling?
I feel great. To be honest, this wasn't, my best year fasting. There's a lot of ups and downs, physically and mentally, emotionally. But it's a great time to self-assess and continue to look in the mirror. So, it's been some tough conversations over the last couple of days, and I'm grateful. So, just continue to get better and continue to just take it one game at a time and trust that God would do the rest.
Conversations with yourself or conversations with God, or like?
No need to you know what I'm saying, Gary.
You know what I'm saying, Cal.
One more. The play on Booker where you stole the ball.
Cal
Take us through seeing the ball, stealing it, and then seeing Jayson on your right to give him the ball for the layup.
Yeah, well, Book had it rolling, so he was playing phenomenal tonight. He was having one of those games where you could see his eyes were big, and they play well, that Phoenix team. They are, a good team. They're well coached. They spaced well. They shoot the ball well, and they play with energy. So not an easy team to guard. So a lot of eyes on Book right there. So, it was just see a play, make a play. And I was able to come up with a steal that was big for us. It's a nice win, but you don't get that steal. You could give up something on the back end. So that's the thing. Like, steals and blocks are great plays for our team, but sometimes just trying to stay in between your man and the ball and making them make tough shots is better for our defense than gambling. I could probably gamble more times and get more steals and blocks, and those would be great for like statistical measures, but it would hurt our defense a little bit more. So even though that was a good play, I don't know if I would do that again.
Do you take a minute to like appreciate the MVP chants? Is that something that's meaningful to you, either whatever, or during the game, or you take a minute afterwards? Like, it kind of feels like kind of a big moment when things like that happen.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty awesome, to be at this point in my career and be able to get that love from the fans. It's pretty awesome, and it was pretty cool too. I was on Southie last night or yesterday there in the day, and I got some MVP chants as well on Southie. I think that might have been a little cooler, but.
What was that experience like, being there and kind of in a different environment, but also around a lot of fans, it looked like?
It was fun. That was my first time going to St. Patrick's Day. I didn't know it was like a big thing. It was like, it felt like it was like 1 million people out there. There was a lot of people out there, and it was cold and it was early, but it felt like the whole city was drunk. But I had a good time. Just to go out and
not me though.
Say hello to the
Not
people
you, Jimmy, never.
Of Boston and things like that in that manner. It's pretty cool. I have some Irish in my blood as well.
Oh.
So it just made it more surreal. It's pretty cool.
I got some Irish in my family.
Like that.
Joe, you mentioned not being able to play in this role for a lot of your career. Obviously, with Jayson back now, there's an onus on trying to work him in, and you've had to sacrifice a little bit during that. What is the mindset of, obviously, you've been MVP talks this year and have had a career season, now having to balance that with, obviously, what's best for the team here? How do you approach that late in the season?
Yeah, it takes humility, and it takes some understanding. I think JT is extremely important to us for what we want to do. Obviously, I'm having a great season, but then I have to just think what's the big picture, and sometimes that's not easy. But I always put the team first and what the bigger picture is first. So it's just kind of a feel thing. You kind of feel it out, and then you take some time. When to be aggressive, how the teams guard, and kind of reassessing all of that stuff because it's different. This team is different, but it's been okay. It's been okay. We found ways to win, and we just got to continue to do that. We got some games left. It's not going to be perfect. I think we could have won in a better facet tonight against the Suns, but it's going to take a little bit of that, that growth factor by the time we get to the playoffs. So I got to be patient. Everybody got to be patient. This is not the best version that you are watching right now. So we just take it one day at a time.
Bobby with the walk-off question. Question of the night. Give it up for Bobby. We get Bobby gets a lot of criticism. A lot of it is not warranted. Some of it definitely is. Let's be honest. It is.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, though, Bobby asks the questions that sometimes others people don't want to ask, or in this case, he just asked a damn good question. Exactly. And I thought Jaylen Brown gave a great answer. Honest. I think Jaylen Brown was very honest in that entire press conference, talking about where he's at, where his head's at, where he thinks the team is, how they look now with Jayson Tatum back, how his role changes or how his mindset changes, and how he has to, again, it takes humility, right? I think it takes maturity. I think it takes the ability to see the bigger picture and understand that, you have bigger goals. Like, of course, Jaylen Brown would love to remain in the MVP conversation and win the MVP. I mean, anyone who says they wouldn't is lying. I mean, that's the dream in one dream, right? The other dream is to win an NBA title. These guys have done that, but the good news is, Sherrod, it doesn't feel like that's enough for them. Winning it once feels like, at least led by Jaylen Brown, and assuming that everybody falls in the same mindset, which I imagine they do, they have championship aspirations, as they should. And I think, again, this is another game that just kind of drives home that point that why wouldn't they? This is a team that, I mean, Jaylen Brown just said it. They can even play better than they are right now. So his ability to sort of understand that, him playing at an MVP level has gotten them this far, but they need Jayson Tatum to get them to the ultimate place, right? And that doesn't mean that they are nothing without Jayson Tatum. Of course, like, they've proven that they can win plenty of games, and they're second seed in the East right now. But I think what he's trying to say is, we know how important Tatum is to this team. Like, why would we not want to figure out a way to make sure that, he's helping us or we're helping each other win games here? And you said it earlier in the show, Sherrod. No reason to believe this team can't finish with the 1 seed either.
Right. And that's very real. I mean, when I listen to Jaylen and Jayson talk about their roles, the team, it makes me think of that commercial where the catchphrase is, "They stay thirsty, my friend." That's what they are. They've stayed thirsty even after winning, being at the pinnacle of their profession. This team is not comfortable settling for one championship. I think Jayson and Jaylen are motivated to be not just really good basketball players in this era. They want to be one of the all-time great tandems in Celtics history. When you think about, all the great Celtics team, it wasn't one or two guys. It was a multitude of guys, but they have been the cornerstones to this franchise's resurgence and in many ways renaissance, to being an amazingly awesome, extremely consistent team in terms of competing for a championship. And they know that another chip cements their place among the all-time great teams, all-time great players. They're already, in my mind, in that category, but 2 championships in this era, where there's so many more teams and probably a couple more teams to come if the NBA has its way, it says a lot about them. It says a lot about their growth, and it says even more so about just the impact that they're making on this organization and this franchise.
And I think the question Bobby asked is one that whether you want to admit it or not, I think a lot of people were wondering how does Brown feel about this, right? I mean, obviously, on one hand, you're getting one of the best players in the league back, and it's going to help you win. But on a personal level, and I think Brown basically acknowledged it. Like, yeah, there's the part of me that loves leading this team and loves proving that I can carry a team and be considered one of the best players in the world in the NBA. And then on the other hand, like, he understands that, listen, like we as a team have bigger plans here, and so that might force him to, again, kind of, I think Mazzulla said it, give the game what it needs, right? Or in a way, right? So that might mean that Wednesday night against the Warriors, Jaylen Brown might not need to give them 41, right? So he's willing to give them what they need to win that game. The goals are to win. The goals are to prepare for the playoffs, as Brown said, and go as far as they can. Where I think there may have been points this year, and again, the wins changed everything for this team.
Mm-hmm.
Jaylen Brown going into the year wanted to prove a number of things. One of them, that he can carry a winning team, and two, that he can be one of the best players in the NBA. And I think he's proven both of those things this year. That isn't to say that he had to do it all by himself, right? He certainly had some help along the way, but I think anybody who's followed this team this year knows how important Brown has been from start to finish. And even, right now with Tatum back, he understood what the game was going to need from him tonight, and that was to be aggressive. And I don't know if it's coincidence, Sherrod, that it comes, roughly a week after the outburst at the officials in San Antonio, if that has anything to do with that or not. But I think his aggressiveness and his determination really is the reason why he ended up with 41 tonight, because more than half of those came from the free throw line. And I don't know if Sherrod is still with us. He's frozen here a little bit, so maybe he's going to come back on here. But I'll go back to what I said on the Brown interview, and I think it's. I'm not going to say the words refreshing, because I think a lot of us were hoping and thinking that was Jaylen Brown's train of thought. But I was waiting for the question to be asked. I was waiting for the answer on, where's your head at with all this? This is just as much your team as anybody else's, And, how are things, mentally, physically, all that stuff with you at this point in the year? And he was honest, talked about Ramadan a little bit, Sherrod, and how that's helped with his focus just in life, but certainly on the basketball court. And I think you're seeing a Jaylen Brown who, in my opinion, has always been mature and has always been shown those leadership qualities. But I think more so than any other season of his career, he's really embraced that role and really embraced that, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk as well. And I think, honestly, I think it's a reason why the players have underneath him. I want to give Joe Mazzulla a ton of credit, because he's the coach and he's really put these players in a position to succeed. But I think from the player side of things, I think Jaylen Brown really has paced this team on and off the court. And I think, you look at guys like Jordan Walsh, how they clearly look up to him. And I think it really just kind of spreads. Jaylen Brown kind of leads the way, and I think everything kind of falls in a line behind him.
Yeah. It's clear that this has been a season of transformative growth for Jaylen Brown and his Celtics team. When you look at just how his game, his leadership skills, his presence, not only within this organization, but throughout the league, it's just not the same anymore. Jaylen Brown has become a major thorn in the backside of pretty much any and every team they play. Teams have had a nice little runway here to figure out how to slow him down, and nothing is really working, which is great for Jaylen. Again, he is at that point in his career where he's already making max money. He's already won an NBA championship. He's already been finals MVP. The boxes that he needs to check off are becoming fewer and fewer by the day. So for him, the one box that's always going to be there, that's always going to be a goal, is winning. And that's the one thing that when you watch him play now, there's a clear focus on figuring out the best way he can do that. And he's figured out that he can have the best of all worlds. I can be an elite scorer. I can be a better defender. I can be the best two-way player in the game. I can take, shots that I feel good about, and we can win. And when you're checking off all those boxes, you're living your best life for sure. And that's what we're seeing from Jaylen on a night in, night out basis. And in this game against Phoenix was just yet another chapter in that particular narrative about Jaylen Brown.
Let me ask you this, Sherrod, because I think the MVP conversation is always fun and interesting. And, at the end of the day, if they go with the player that has the best stats, then it's not going to be Jaylen Brown. We already know that. It's just not going to be. But if the Celtics can end up with that number one seed, first of all, I think Joe Mazzulla deserves Coach of the Year. And second of all, and let's assume Jaylen Brown remains a huge piece of that, and he's still putting together these 30-point games. And again, tonight you got a 40-plus game. Does that matter to voters? The fact that, okay, they are the one seed and Jaylen Brown kind of kept it going for them and they didn't take the foot off the gas and his stats still kind of stuck around. I mean, does that matter? Or you've been covering the league for years and years, and I'm in voting and all these things. Like, what matters? Is it just stats? Because if it's just stats, then okay, the conversation's over. He's not going to get it. And his stats might even take up somewhat of a hit now, at least points would say. But I mean, tonight it didn't. So the Celtics end up with the one seed. Jaylen Brown's numbers remain pretty consistent, even with Tatum returning. Is not a good case to be made there? I
think it's a great case. The way the voting typically works, and again, this is just just being around voters for a really long time. Too often they lock in on stats. They don't pay as much attention, or they don't put as much stock into actually winning games as they should. And it's a bad, to me. It's sad when that happens, because to me, if Jaylen Brown winds up on the best team record-wise in the Eastern Conference, and it's done in enough time to where votes can be tallied. Because, I mean, if they're kind of going back and forth with Detroit, close but not quite there, and the Celtics don't get, let's say, the number one seed until like the week before the playoffs, then most of the votes have already been cast. And so that's one thing. But if they're able to, let's say in the next, I don't know, let's say by the end of this month,
weeks.
Yeah, if they're able to get that number one spot, I think you have to give him serious consideration when you look at his numbers, you look at the areas of growth in his game individually, and you look at the fact that they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, a year when there were questions, and very legit questions, if they would even be a play-in team. To go from being that to having the best record and not having to make any blockbuster deals. And as much as you certainly believe they're a better team with Jayson Tatum, they've played the overwhelming majority of this season without him, and yet they're still right there. They have been right there near the top of the standings. Mind you, that first 2 or 3 games of the season where they got off to a slow start. So I think you have to take that into account. I've always felt that winning doesn't get enough credit when it comes to voting for players, because ultimately, I mean, it's the one thing that in theory everyone should be wanting to do. Not everyone is going to want that supermax contract, because not everyone knows they're some guys have enough self-awareness to know that I'm probably not going to get that break. I'm not going to get that money. But winning a championship, hell yeah, everyone can have that as an aspiration and it be real. And the thing about Jaylen, he's put up big numbers and he's positioned his team to compete at the highest level, which is to get to the NBA Finals. Now, what happens if they get there, and nobody knows, but for them to potentially have the best record in the Eastern Conference, I don't know how, at a minimum, he's a top 3 finisher if they have the best record in the NBA or in the Eastern Conference. I don't know how you can keep him outside of your top 5, out of your top 3, because that, to me, when you look at his numbers, and you look at the fact that they're winning, and you look at the fact that he's done this pretty much in his first shot at being the guy. I don't know how you could look at him as not being a top 3 candidate. And even if they finish second, I still think he should be in the top 5.
Yeah, and I think I'm right there with you. Oh, top 5 for sure. That's where I'm at with Jaylen Brown this year. And And I guess we'll see. There's time left for the narratives to change a little bit. Certainly, the whole game availability aspect might play a role at some point. At least it has for some of these players. And regardless, Sherrod, I mean, it would be an unbelievable story if he were to end up with it. We'll find out we'll find out at the end of the season. But regardless, it goes to show the type of year he's had. And if you've been picking him on PrizePicks this year, Sherrod, I hope you're picking more. I really, really do hope you're picking more on Jaylen Brown, because that's almost like a free pick. It feels like, I mean, unless PrizePicks has caught on, which, hey, maybe they have been. But we love PrizePicks. Playoff push is heating up and tournament hoops are here. Sure. We're talking about college basketball here now for a second. There's no better way to cash in if you're right on the high-flying hoops action with PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. Every bucket, every dime, every win means more when you're playing on PrizePicks. With the brand new Teams Picks market, you can now pick game winners, spreads, and totals on top of the player picks you already know. That's right, team picks, Sherrod. It's not just about the player. So cash in if you're right during all the clutch buckets, slam dunks, and Cinderellas this spring with team picks on PrizePicks. So maybe your bracket gets busted and everyone's is going to get busted. I'm just going to tell you right now, at some point, your bracket's getting busted. Regardless, PrizePicks is going to keep it fun, keep it interesting for you guys, and you can do those team picks, which is going to be awesome addition to your NCAA March Madness viewing pleasure, which starts this Thursday, which is crazy about. I'm going to have to move some things around, I think, beginning at 12 o'clock so that I can get in on some of that action. You pick the winner straight up on PrizePicks. Who's going to win the next big game? Who is going to win the fight? Back your takes with real money. PrizePicks, you can even pick who is going to cut down the nets in a couple weeks, or who is going to win a ring this summer, whether it's the tournament, the playoffs, or even the international baseball tournament. That's right, the WBC. USA, I think it's against Venezuela, I'm hearing. Venezuela pulled it off, which is sad for my Italian brothers. You can call the shot, cash in if you make the right picks. It's all on PrizePicks. So it's college hoops, it's NBA, it's the World Baseball Classic. Bunch of great stuff going on at PrizePicks. So download PrizePicks, use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Download PrizePicks today. Pick your first game winner, spread, or total as the playoff push rolls on, and get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Use the code CLNS. That's code CLNS. Get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineups. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. And we are going to get Bobby Manning jumping on with us shortly from the TD Garden. I think John Zanis was going to come on, Sherrod, but I think he saw the 41 from Jaylen. He goes, hey, you know what? I'll see you Wednesday night. No, Monday is Professor Zanis's night with the kids. Mm-hmm. Him and Sherrod are both shaping our youth's minds, and they both do a great job from what I hear. Check out Rate My Professor, I think, if you want to get the true story. But apparently, and I'm getting word that there may have been a familiar face in John Zanis's class. Somebody that you might know from the show, whether it's front facing or behind the scenes. I think Amit may have made an appearance. I'm going to just go out and put it out there.
Wow.
Quite the class, apparently. But anyway, Sherrod, we'll get Bobby's take on everything, and I'm sure we'll get his take on the Jaylen stuff since he was one who asked. But I want to circle back to the game for a minute. Mm-hmm. What's your take on, well, I don't want to, 19 from Pritchard off the bench is great. You had 21 from White. Mm-hmm. I thought Shyman gave you a lot tonight too. Again, coming off the bench for Boston, gave you 8, 5, and 2. Not a massive stat line. +5 off the bench. What do you think of him coming off the bench, and what do you think of Hauser starting? Is that something that you see is going to stay, or do you think there's something? If there were to be a change with that starting lineup, can you see those two possibly flipping at some point?
I could absolutely see it. But I don't think it's going to happen because the roles that they're cast right now are working for each of them and they're working for the team. And I'm not sure if you flip-flop them, that will be the case. Shireman, again, he's doing what all solid young players should do, and that is play off your vets. Let them find you and make the most of the opportunities that they position you to take advantage of. Shireman knocked down some shots, and he didn't have a ton of shots, but he knocked down the ones where he had an opportunity to make plays. And that's the kind of stuff that for young guys still trying to feel his way through this league, it's important that you gain the trust and confidence of your teammates. And I think he's getting more and more comfortable doing just that. And that's what you want if you're the Celtics. You want your young fella who's, this is his first season where he's actually playing, to keep finding ways to contribute to winning and giving this team a chance to be the best version of itself that they can be. So, yeah, I like what I'm seeing from him. And I definitely think that there's a possibility there could be a flip-flop. I don't think there will be, but it's definitely possible between him and Hauser.
Yeah, I loved what Shireman gave them tonight. Active with the steals, hit a couple big threes. There they are, and just kind of getting his hands into things. Right. I mean, it felt like certainly wasn't an Ugo night. It feels like on any given night, one of those guys is getting their hands dirty and really just pestering teams. And you need those players. Those players, Sherrod, exist on championship teams. It doesn't mean they're the centerpiece of them, but they come in, they know their role, they play their part, they play hard, they make it annoying for the opposing teams like stars, let's say, right? And, obviously Devin Booker got his tonight. There wasn't really a whole lot of people stopping him, dropped 40. But I think guys like Shireman and Ugo, right now it's those two. It's not Walsh right now. Walsh has kind of found himself on the outside looking in. But that's not to say he won't get his opportunity at some point either. Right now, it seems the Shireman has sort of risen above the rest there and is playing a little bit more consistent basketball. And yes, hand up. It took me a while to get there. I think this is a player now worth talking about and has been for a little bit, right? I think, it's worthy of the Garden Report. We'll leave it at that. If I'm bringing him up, Sherrod, I'm probably late to the party. I'm not on the front lines of the Stay Ready crew. I never have been. I probably never will be, but I'm there. I understand Shireman's importance to winning basketball. I can understand how he could be like the fifth starter in such, matchup wise, or if Hauser doesn't look like the Hauser that I think Celtics fans maybe know and love at his best, right? I mean, Hauser obviously can give you that stretch the floor capability, but Shireman's 2 of 2 from 3 tonight, and shooting was his thing coming in to the league. He's kind of made his carved out a role for himself doing everything else, right? Playing defense and just kind of getting involved any way he can. And I think his dependability and his consistency has been something that has allowed Joe Mazzulla to keep him on the court. If he can keep defenses honest on that 3-point line shot, then he becomes a much more important piece to this team than, certainly he was to start this year. Or again, he kind of falls into that same category of guys that you weren't sure if or what their role was with this team, or if they had a long career ahead of them in the NBA. I think that narrative has certainly changed as the season has gone on this year.
Yeah, I mean, guys are making the most of their opportunities, and that's really what this season has been about for the Celtics, just one opportunity to be great after another. And when you have a team full of guys with something to prove, which they do, you're going to have many opportunities to win because your effort is going to position you to do that. And in Shireman, I think that's the one thing that has been consistent with him throughout this journey, and that is the ability to play with a great amount of effort. And the thing, I give him a lot of credit because he's had some games this year where, he'd play and he'd do a few nice things, get a couple baskets here and there. And then he goes into DNPville, where he ain't playing nowhere. I mean, he gets no burn. And I think for him, it keeps him hungry so that when he does get in the game, he plays with great effort, great energy. And the main thing he's doing now is he's playing a role that's making a difference in winning. It's one thing to be out there and, just kind of defend a little bit and you get beat every now and then and all that. On winning. Hey, Bobby, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up?
Bobby
What's up,
Manning
Jimmy?
in the building. Where is he? Let's get him on here, Bobby.
Here we go.
I'm here.
Hold on.
What's going on, Jimmy?
We got him.
I'm here. Hello.
I can't.
I hear you, Bobby.
I can't see you. I hear you, but I
I'm
can't
here.
see you.
I see
I
me
can
on the
see-
broadcast.
I can see you
Just
clearly,
refresh,
Bobby.
Jimmy, but yeah, good game tonight. I thought this was one of the harder-earned wins of the year for the Celtics, and great Brown performance,
see.
which we haven't seen consistently since Tatum returned, and you obviously see the capability for both those guys to score at the same time and have great games in unison, along with, I thought, some strong contributing performances from Pritchard and White in this one. So this was a pretty full effort. They needed it. It was a crunch time win. They're below 500 in the clutch this season. Jaylen obviously figured out how to get to the free throw line in droves at a historic level by Celtics standards. And this is a fun watch, too. Watching Booker do his thing and the Celtics react and try to slow that late. Made for one of my favorite games this season. And you knew Phoenix coming in full, more full than the last time that they played them out west.
Right.
It was going to be a better game. But I didn't expect this level of pushback from them. They were in control of this game for a large part of the second half, and the Celtics had to work back possession for possession down the stretch and then hold off a Suns push. Some great role performances on that Phoenix side, too, from Highsmith and others. So this is a playoff level game. Obviously not one of the best teams in the league that you went up against, but one of the best of the teams in your class, where
Right.
you are in the standings right now. Obviously, we've seen the Celtics fall a little bit below the championship contender field over the last week or two here. This is one of the better teams among that second group of teams across the NBA. And you escaped here with a real good win. One of your stronger wins all season, I'd say.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we talked about a little bit earlier was that, this was the first time since Tatum's been back where they really had to execute late in the game to get the win. And they did that at both ends of the floor. Bobby, what's your take on how Tatum and Brown are they seem to be kind of hitting the ground running to where they were pre-Tatum injury quicker than I think a lot of people anticipated at this point?
Yeah, it hasn't been seamless in my mind. And you guys heard Jaylen talk about it there live, the ups and downs of trying to get that going for Tatum individually, right? And I think his minutes restriction worked out some of those things initially. And now that he's back into the 30s, you're going to have them both out there for more minutes throughout the course of the game. And I thought they won their minutes together pretty decisively throughout this game. The solo minutes for both of them weren't as good when you look at the numbers here in this one. And then them together closing the game out over the final 6 minutes was a +7. So they were both able to score at different points. The pace that they played with in the second half, I thought both got them opportunities. But when it became clear this was Brown's night, you love that they continued to go back to him for the entirety of the fourth quarter effectively. And he scored 18 of their first 25 points in that fourth. And obviously Pritchard and Tatum hit a couple free throws to close it out. He had to carry the offense by himself, and he's obviously capable of it. He should continue to get those opportunities when he's the hot hand in these games and he has the matchups and everything else. And Tatum sounded amicable to that after the game and said, we've been doing this for 9 years together at this point, and we know how to play with each other. We know when to help each other out, assist each other, and take control of the game ourselves at different points too. And you can see that to some degree so far. The Tatum numbers haven't been pretty offensively. The defensive numbers for him have been out of this world since his return. And that starting lineup, especially, you saw late in the fourth quarter, just locked down on that end. The rebounding's much better. The switchability of that group is awesome. Pritchard's able to guard Booker for you in the final minutes of a game, one possession game. That's great stuff. And Tatum has obviously helped the rebounding immensely too, which you needed. So it's what we've said. It's going to disrupt Brown to some degree. He's down from like 28 to 21 points per game coming into this one since Tatum returned. He's going to help you in a bunch of other areas, the passing, the rebounding, the defense. And he's probably not going to look fully like himself this season. But can he get 70, 80, maybe 90% of him by the end of the year? That's going to be a huge boost and a huge improvement over what you were playing at that position previously.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby, Jaylen Brown tonight, getting to the line 12 times in the first quarter, obviously 21 in the game. How much of that is last week's, whatever you want to call it, show? And how much of that is just him playing hard-nosed, aggressive basketball and feels like this is how he always plays and these are the calls you should always get? I mean, is there something there, or are you seeing a different sort of Brown in this game? And you mentioned his ability to take over in that fourth quarter there. What's that do for his? And I hope that we can get your question clipped. I'm hoping to play it again after to Brown. But what's it do for his mindset to know that like I'm still going to get these opportunities. I'm still going to be able to put these performances together and get hot like this and carry the team offensively. That must give him a little bit of a relaxed feeling about where he's at personally and where the team is.
Very emboldens him to take control, which is what he did in the fourth quarter. Tatum's in the corner and they're running it through Brown again and again and again in that frame. And Suns had a bunch of smaller guards and wings that you could attack through the course of this game. Highsmith and Allen and all the way down the line. There's great opportunities to play isolation against this team and score again and again. And Brown just put his head down, which is what we've seen from him for a lot of this season. Going to the rim every time, smashing through contact, embracing it, and forcing officials to make a call. And 21's pretty startling. Now, you also got great bonus position in a couple different quarters. He was fouled on the floor in a couple bonus situations to be able to get there a few more times. Good loose ball play along the sideline that they called on Highsmith, I believe in the fourth quarter there. So he was able to find different ways to get to the line through this one. It wasn't all just going to the rim, drawing shooting fouls. But that last one, especially the decisive one at the end of the fourth, saw a couple times in that situation. Saw center coming over to help at the basket the last minute before the foul call. And Tatum's out there. Pritchard and White are out there. You still have all this shooting around you. You have that other star out on the floor. And teams are still guarding Brown like he's the MVP, like he's that 40-point scorer. And that's only going to open up more things for this offense right now. So I've been an advocate over the last week here, Jimmy, as we've discussed this thing. Get Tatum going now. Give him those opportunities. Allow him to get up to speed. But if it's clear after a couple weeks here that Jaylen's continuing on that first team All-NBA level and Tatum's not quite going to get back to his old form this season, you do have to reconstruct the offense. Not that you have to change a ton, but continue to play through Jaylen the advantages he's gaining off the ball and the passing vision that he's continued to flash throughout all these games. If he wasn't facilitating as well, Jimmy, I wouldn't feel as great about it because Tatum's obviously the better passer at the point of attack. But Jaylen's done enough there. I mean, we had a great angle on one of his kick-out passes that went, across the perimeter for a three early in this game. And he's seeing the floor so well right now. And as he said after the game, it feels like he can do even better with that with more opportunities late. So we've talked about it, Jimmy. We know where Jaylen is right now. We don't fully know what Tatum is, and that's no knock on him. The situation he's in is obvious, and I think he even understands that to some degree. So this got to continue to be Jaylen's team until further notice.
You mentioned Tatum earlier, how offense isn't there, but defense has been exceptional. You concerned at all with the jump shot from Tatum? I mean, it's still not where you want it to be. I don't know if we thought it would be at this point, or is it just water's going to find its level at some point? I mean, next season, or is there, where are you at with things based on what you're looking at with him?
Well, when it comes to the three, especially, you're glad the teams are going to continue to take that seriously, and teams are going to continue to take all of his offensive situations extremely seriously. They're not just going to dare Tatum to shoot or force him to have the ball in his hand. So that's what's more important than the shooting numbers to me, is the gravity that it draws. And he's going to do that, gives openings to other people. And he's been pass happy since coming back. I love the connective style that he's playing overall. but the numbers are pretty bad shooting wise since he's come back. And I know he's doing all the other things. It does get to a level where you're like, you want this to be better. And I still don't know to this point. I don't know if you have a good sense, Sherrod, of whether he's missing shots or this is related to the injury and coming back from it and not having the lift or whatever other limitations there might be physically here, not able to get the separation to get us open in different scenarios. It's shocking to see him miss this many shots. And it seems to be getting a little better with each night, especially in pockets here. And I'm sure the minutes going into the 30s are going to help him gain rhythm and momentum in these ones. So I'll continue to give him the benefit of the doubt. We've seen it a million times. How many segments about Tatum shooting have we done over the years on this show? So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that it's just a cold stretch to begin his return here and that he'll get going at some point like he usually does. But the slump's continuing here. And if it does, it's just another question about how they're going to calibrate this offense late in the season.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something to keep an eye out for. But they're just figuring this stuff out, finding ways to figure out what has to be done in order to keep the train moving, to keep winning, and do so, in a way that I think recognizes their continued evolution. This team is far from a finished product. And I think that's what makes them such a dangerous team as we near the home stretch here in the regular season going to the playoffs. This team has found ways to win even when they're not at full strength, even when they frankly haven't quite figured out how to put teams away. I thought that's Phoenix team had a hell of a game and had many opportunities, I thought, early on to really establish and assert themselves. But the Celtics found a way to chip away, take the lead, and just finish them off in a really, really tightly contested game down the stretch. And certainly, the guy, one of the many guys I thought that played well was Tatum, obviously, with 21, 7, and 4. This team is figuring out how to win. No matter who they're playing, no matter how they're playing, they're finding a way to get things done when it matters most. And that's really admirable. And frankly, it should put the rest of the league on notice that this team, they ain't going nowhere. They're going to compete. And that is something that I don't think anyone, or certainly not many, if anyone, felt would be one of the character traits of this team, that they're just a tough-minded team. Finds ways to win.
Listen, we're going to ask the questions, Jimmy. We're going to say, how do you figure out this Brown-Tatum dynamic and all the things that go into it? But you do have the confidence in what they're saying. And Tatum said after game here too, is that they've been doing this for so long. And it's a different situation, right? Jaylen's clearly the one in control and playing better basketball right now. Jayson's more diminished than we've ever seen him throughout his career. So they're going to have to pull different levers and try to figure out things on a game-by-game basis. But all those levers are there. They're healthy. They have flexibility. They have a bunch of different wings that they can play in these games. It feels like the buy-in's there, that if they have to do something and Joe has to make an adjustment, they're willing to live with that. And you can think of some drastic ones that might come up into the playoffs, Jimmy. Does Tatum not have it at all on a given night? Is Shireman rolling in a fourth quarter and you want to roll with him? I think Joe's in a better position at this point in his career to not just defer to the veteran or the elder statesman on the team or get stuck in something that he's been doing over and over again and not adjust. I think he feels like, and he's done it this year, right, Jimmy? How many times has he benched Jaylen in a first half and not brought him out back in, or in a second half because they've been playing terrible? He's been more emboldened to do that than ever before. So that would normally be my biggest question going into the playoffs in this situation is, what if Tatum's 0 for 11 to start a half in a playoff game? What are you going to do? I feel more confidence in him, certainly, than in 2023, his first year, to be able to make those adjustments on the fly. And they have a lot of different directions that they can go on this roster.
True.
They do. And we just got Tatum up here, so we're going to toss him on the show and see what he had to say after this Celtics 121-12
game since you've been back.
Jayson Tatum.
How'd it feel?
It felt good, just being out there in a close game at home. Just being a part of the atmosphere, being a part of winning plays on both ends. Obviously it's been a while since I've been a part of that. So it felt good to be out there.
You guys closed in a 14-2 run. How were you able to shut them down in the end?
I think just our communication, especially on the defensive end, really ramped up. Guys just made timely plays, timely rebounds, and I think we got some good shots. Obviously, JB got a lot of free throws and stuff down the end. He was attacking the basket and, putting the pressure on the officials, so that helped us out a lot.
Jaylen goes for 40 in this one. Obviously, he'd had an MVP career season before you came back. I know you've thought a lot about how you fit into that and the team dynamic coming back. What has been your mindset of trying to still make sure he can be himself, but also getting yourself going since your return?
I think we've done a really good job of that, over the last 9 years, especially probably these last, 6. We've just found a way to really complement each other on both ends of the floor and win a bunch of basketball games and win a bunch of playoff series and win a championship. So just something we've been doing for a long time.
What has been the key over the years to making that work?
Just getting a better understanding of each other, knowing what we need out of each other throughout the course of 82-game season and long, deep playoff runs, and just making the right plays, over and over again.
Jayson, the first half of that fourth quarter, you guys had a few turnovers. The Sun went on a run, got up a little bit, and then
good question, Bobby.
Sort of shut them down to end the game. What did you see from their defense and your guys' offense that sort of shifted from, okay, we're turning the ball over to let's get back to what we're doing?
You got to give them some credit. They're a really good team. They play extremely hard. They got some talented players. They crash the glass over and over again. So, I think it's just part of an NBA game. They're going to make some runs, and it's about how you answer.
And the pressure that Devin Booker puts on your guys' defense. You had, I think, 39 points tonight. How did you guys shift coverages to account for him? What was the process of defending him?
Just give him different looks. We kind of blitz him a little bit at the end. Somebody as good and talented as him, you just try to make it tough on him, try to switch up the coverages, try to keep him off the line and not foul him and limit him to one shot, and rebound the ball.
Jayson, you mentioned those 9 years with you and JB being here in Boston. At this point in your careers, do you guys still find new things about each other's games at this point? Is there anything that, might surprise you about him or vice versa, about how you guys work on things?
Surprise, I wouldn't say surprise. I think the element of trust that we have in one another and that we can rely on one another in the biggest moments, in the biggest games, in the biggest situations, right? We've been through all of them together and came out on top, most of them, and, falling short a few times. But I know one thing is that, when we step on that floor, we know that the other person is going to do whatever it takes to try to win this game.
5 games in now for you. Do you feel like you're where you want to be physically at this stage of the process?
You always want more. But there's a balance of, being grateful that, I'm at this point and I'm capable of being out there and playing 30, 32 minutes and contributing. But, as a competitor, you want to be better. So I'm trying to find that balance.
Just what was it like? Jaylen steals the ball from Booker. You fill the middle. Did you think he was going to get you the ball? And what was that like? Just kind of fill the middle of the lane again and just kind of convert the play.
Felt like old times.
Jayson, you've obviously anticipated this, coming back to the court for a very long time. Now that you're out there, are you still thinking I pulled it off, I made it happen this season, kind of that emotion that comes with that, or are you almost kind of used to it now that it's been 5 games since your return?
No, I'm not used to it. I still was a little anxious this morning, excited. It's like, I get to play basketball today. I had to sit out for a long time and just come watch. I wasn't as excited as the first game, but there's still a level of excitement of I get to go do what I love to do.
Thanks, Jayson.
There's Jayson Tatum.
Get on the court. I
Gets
thought
to
you
play
looked
basketball
solid tonight.
again. You think he looks solid? Why don't you go on in that a little bit? You were in the building. Look, by the way, Bobby, it felt like a loud crowd there today on Monday night.
Oh yeah,
game.
Surprisingly
Fans
strong,
starting to-
especially down the stretch.
I mean, it's still a lot
Tatum's
of
back. Everyone wants
a lot
to
of
see him.
fans seeing Tatum back for the first time. There's a
Yeah.
lot of like renewed energy there, and I don't think he's a spark.
There's a
It
big
really is a
pop
huge
when he
spark.
scores.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
so
you
the
got
building
the
was
MVP chance
rocking.
too.
MVP chance for Jaylen. Everything just seems to fall into place. And that's what we've talked about, Jimmy. We're always concerned. We always have a lot of questions, consternation over things. And I'm at the top of the list there. But sometimes things do just fall into place, work out. And this team, the trust level, and that's the word you keep hearing tossed around tonight, is strong because there's a lot of uncertainty. Sherrod mentioned it a couple minutes ago. This team has more unknowns than maybe many in the league, and especially teams in their positions. And this team, you knew their identity, you knew who they were, and they played consistent basketball night to night, pretty much through the length of the season up to the point that Tatum returned. And this changed everything. And now you have a bunch of different scenarios that could play out into the playoffs to make you think, all right, is this the same team? Is their ceiling the same? It could obviously be better with Tatum in the mix, which is why this is so intriguing and exciting here. But so far, despite extremely inconsistent play from Tatum, Brown taking a 7-point hit, as we've talked about in his scoring, Pritchard slumping lately, and this offense not quite playing at the same level that it had prior, you're still winning most of these games. And against San Antonio and Oklahoma City, that second one obviously without Tatum, you're right there in the fourth quarters against the two best teams in the league to this point. So there's still a ton to figure out. And we have no idea where Tatum's going to be in the playoffs. And they still look like a dangerous team and one that can win any game that they show up for here. And obviously will probably lock down this 2 seed, I would imagine, down the stretch of the season, barring a collapse. And that's because, as Sherrod mentioned, no matter who's out there, you feel like they're going to succeed and they're going to figure out a way to win minutes and games.
Do you feel like this game kind of resembled how things might look, more often than not, with not saying Brown's going to drop 41, but Brown kind of leads the way offensively. Tatum gives you, a good amount of everything, right? He gave you 21, 7, and 4 tonight. I think on any given night, give or take, he can give you those types of numbers. You got some good bench production tonight from Pritchard, who gave you 19 off the bench. And I thought he had a couple of big threes for them in that second half when the Suns were in the midst of their, what's his name there? Friggin' went off. Highsmith.
Yeah, he was great.
Highsmith, not even Booker. Highsmith coming out of the clouds for the Suns.
Couple steals late, attacking the rim.
Shout out Highsmith.
That was a former Heat guy that used to kill you.
Yeah. I was gonna say, he's kind of a Celtics killer in a weird way. One of those guys.
He was sitting out for a long time to start the season too. He just came back. Yeah, he was working his way back on the Nets, and then they cut him right before he was ready to come back. Celtics could have had him, Bobby. Celtics could have had him. He was available. Buyout guy, right? They could have. Instead, they got Bassey. Bassey's in the house.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't want to pay the tax. Got a tax man was coming.
Yeah. Oh, there goes Jimmy. They pulled him off the air after he mentioned the tax.
Oh, the T word, Jimmy and the T word. No, the thing that's interesting about what these Celtics are doing is just the you start looking at the guys that are in the mix for them, and you look at the roles that they're asked to play, and it seems really kind of fundamentally basic, but they're asking a lot of guys who haven't been asked to do much previously, and they seem to be handling it better than I think anyone anticipated. What are your thoughts about just how those role guys, the Luka Garzas of the world, and how they're handling their roles with the Celtics, which is very different than anything they've done up to this point in the league?
Yeah, I think for all those guys right now, that's going to be the question late in the season here is what's the buildup of minutes, workload, accumulation of everything that they've had to do this season. What kind of impact will that have on everybody across the board? And Pritchard, I think, on Celtics Daily yesterday, we were talking about how he's doubled his pick and roll output this season compared to last year. And he was playing a lot of minutes, had a major role a year ago, but not like this. I mean, his ball handling responsibility is just spiked immensely, especially without Tatum. Keita, I mean, what do you have, 35 again tonight? Feels like he's playing 30, 40 minutes every night when he played 30 minutes once in his career going into this season. Garza's back in the mix, obviously in a smaller role, and Shireman's playing a lot. Is that going to fizzle out like the Walsh and Minot stuff did earlier in the year, or did you find something with that bench wing? So there's questions among the role guys on this roster too. But another thing we've seen this year, Jimmy, is if one guy doesn't have it, it'll be another player. Ugo's still lurking, and Walsh is playing a minute or two.
But
So
that
all these guys are
rotation,
available.
Listen, the playoffs come around. They're not going to be going, 11, 12 deep here.
No, it'll be Tatum and Brown heavily.
Is it too early to predict, 6, 7, 8, 9,
It's Hauser. It's a little Garza. The price spiked Kata's minutes. I do find the interesting thing from this one, Shireman obviously is in that mix too, among the 8-man rotation. They went to a Tatum look at center in this one. They did it against San Antonio too for 4 minutes. I don't know what they're trying to get at there. Do they feel like they're going to need small ball because of the center situation here? And we mentioned Bassey coming in and Amari's hanging around. We haven't seen either of those guys yet. But there's still that unknown at center come playoff time. A couple quick Kata fouls, a bad Garza night. All these things are feasible, certainly. And do you have enough depth inside, especially if you're going small, to be able to survive that? The Tatum center look was pretty bad in this one. Then the Suns scored on 6 of their 7 possessions against it, and the Celtics got right away from it for the rest of the night. They lost those minutes by 21 points per 100 in that San Antonio game. So, the small ball, all the guards, all the wings lineup is something that's gone back to Hayward that they've tried to make work, and it just hasn't because of a number of reasons. And I don't think it's going to be a look for this team either, especially with where Tatum's at. Maybe last year version of Tatum before the injury could have pulled that off, but it's not going to be your answer this year. Now, is it Ugo? Is he going to be enough of an offensive threat to be able to play center for you? I don't know. And then Walsh is an option there, but it might be, and I hate to do this.
Are you talking about when? What were you saying? Ugo and Walsh? You're talking about this season? Talking about
center.
The playoffs?
Yeah, you only have 2 centers right now. What if one of them gets hurt? What if one of them's in foul trouble and you need minutes from another guy? Like, I think the biggest question with this team going into the playoffs.
They're anticipating getting Vucevic back before the playoffs. But with Vucevic, Bobby, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys that are getting playing time. And you're not going to go 10 guys.
This team might. This team might. Now, you're going to cut it off a little bit if other guys have it going or things are going according to plan with the usual rotation. And that's obviously the starters plus Pritchard and Hauser. Maybe a little Shireman. His minutes probably get cut down in the playoffs. And then another big, whether that's Vucevic or Garza. So, yeah, you could end up in a 7-8 scenario in the tightest of playoff settings, Jimmy. But this team's strength this year has been its depth in a lot of different games, and I'm sure they would love to utilize a few Ugo minutes on a ball handler. If Shireman's playing well, continue to keep him in the mix here. I think that's more than feasible for this team.
Some of these guys are making it very difficult to just remove.
And that's where Tatum's going to come into play. Are you getting 40 quality Tatum minutes in a playoff game this
I don't think you're getting 40 minutes from Tatum. I don't think they're giving him 40.
So that's where Shireman and Hauser and some of these guys are still in the mix.
Right. Now, you mentioned Hauser a couple of times. What are you seeing from him? He's still in the starting lineup. I mentioned it to Sherrod earlier in the show. Is that something that you see staying? Or is Shireman kind of playing his way into that position possibly? It feels like, Hauser tonight, I'll just say it, 1 of 3 from the field, 2 points. He 0 of 2 from 3.
Great pass by Kata on that bucket, though.
That was a great pass, I will say. But this is about Hauser right now. So what are you seeing? What's going on with him?
I don't know. He's not getting many opportunities in a game like this. Suns are obviously switching and trying to stay in front of guys. They're in rotation for some of this game. So you would think Hauser would have gotten a few more shots. He had some foul trouble in this game too. I know Joe mentioned after this game. So they didn't utilize him in the fourth and second half as much as they probably would have. But sometimes you do desire a little more there, Jimmy, right? Couple shots in big situations don't fall. Obviously, he doesn't have the most versatile offensive game. He's not making big plays inside around the rim, offensive rebounding like Shireman can. But I still like having some lineup balance because Shireman can handle the ball. He can create. He can do a lot of different things that I think the second unit needs. Honestly, I don't think you're going to get much from Tatum if you take him away from some of the, or much from Hauser, rather, if you take him away from some of the other best players on the team who are setting him up in that starting lineup.
But are they
loved the way
setting
he's
him up?
played the
I
last
mean,
couple of
are they
games.
doing it? I don't know.
Not right now.
Shireman
But
is
that might be a matchup thing too.
Shireman is, a couple good shooting games away from really being Hauser 2.0 in a sense. I am exaggerating a bit on the
You
outside
just feel
shooting,
better
but
about Hauser's shot than Shireman's, though, don't you?
historically,
think-
yes, but recently, not really.
That's a tough one.
Yeah,
That's
you're still
tough.
going to play Shireman a lot, though, in that second unit. I like having against some lineup balance there, because let's say you do start Shireman, send Hauser to the bench, and Hauser just disappears. I mean, that happened earlier this season, so I do hesitate to get away from that. He's played his best basketball in the starting lineup here. And again, Jimmy, Tatum's eating up a lot of shots. Brown's eating up a lot of shots with those starters. So that's going to take some stuff away from Hauser. Does it make more sense to get him more looks with the bench now? That could be the case, but the starting lineup numbers are incredible defensively, especially right now. And I do think Hauser's defense goes a little under the radar when teams try to attack him and take themselves out of their offense, going at him over and over again. He usually holds up pretty well. And I think that bodes well for Boston's defense right now, too. I obviously don't have the numbers right in front of me, but Tatum and Brown had a 93 defensive rating since Tatum came back coming into this game tonight. And I think the starting lineup is right around 100, maybe 103. With the 5 starters, Tatum, Brown, Hauser, Kada, and White now since that group got together. So defensively, you've been crushing it. This was a rough night for parts of it. And then late, you came together and were awesome on that end. So I think they like that new identity that's popped up over the last couple weeks here. Hauser's actually a part of it. I know you're not going to just give him all the credit in the world for their defensive success, but I do think we don't give him enough sometimes, especially compared to where he was early in his career. He can impact the game on that side of the floor, and Shireman, I think, is pushing him. There should be some healthy competition there, especially for minutes in a game like this. What were their minutes, Jimmy, the two of them?
Who? Shireman and Hauser? Hauser was 23. Shireman was 25.
Yeah, so Shireman plays a little bit more than him in this game, deservedly so. But it's a balance.
Yeah, it is. I find that to be, I look for try to find little interesting angles, Bobby. I just find like that to be a little bit of a.
Yeah, sometimes you watch a Hauser game and
lineup.
you're just like, oh, but
yeah,
when he's rolling, I mean, it's that thing, Jimmy, right? You're not going to get a great Hauser game every night, but you want him in position to have one. And his gravity makes a difference for Brown and Tatum. Like, I know we hate getting into all the minutia here, but his presence in the starting lineup, I still think is a positive, even if he's only scoring 3 points in a game.
Right. Bobby, do you want to play a little Jaylen clip? Because you were in there on that press conference. And
yeah, I want to hear what you guys thought.
Yeah. We're not going to play the whole interview again, but we do have a clip here that we're going to toss to you right now and see. We'll talk about it after. But Bobby was in on this, and I think it's a Bobby question that we're going to play here. So, Harrison, you can toss to that. Can't hear anything.
Nope.
Can you guys?
Nope. No sound.
Okay. See if we can get the audio working on that. Come back to that. Whoops. Okay. We will circle back, and we're there again. Still no audio.
Can you play with Tatum or not?
Still no audio, Harrison. So we'll get out of that.
You're gonna sacrifice Jaylen?
Yeah, Bobby. Why don't you just review? Yeah,
it's Tatum. It's
we'll
Tatum.
Get this out of here.
Tatum gonna disrupt what you're doing.
What are we doing right now? I can't even get this out of here if I want to.
Yeah, you guys heard it earlier. Just wanted him to reflect, because he said earlier in the presser too.
The hell?
That he's had the opportunity to do things this year that he's never been able to do in his career.
Right.
Obviously, Tatum's absence is a part of that. So, just want him to go a little deeper into that. And see where he's at mentally on this thing. And I know people get annoyed with that line of questioning and feels like they figured all these things out, but it's a unique situation and season and circumstance for Tatum. So, they're in uncharted territory in some degree about trying to make that work, especially with only 20 games to try to figure it out. So it's great that they know each other so well. Great that they trust each other. But just want to hear from both of them on it.
Yeah, no, and I hopefully we'll get it to go. If not, you guys watching this back and scroll back to the beginning of the show, and we got the whole Jaylen soundbite there. But Bobby, one of the things I asked Sherrod,
being able to play in this role for a lot of your career, obviously with Jayson back now, there's an onus on trying to work him in, and you've had to sacrifice a little bit during that. What is the mindset of, obviously you've been in MVP talks this year and have had a career season, now having to balance that with obviously what's best for the team here? How do you approach that late in the season?
Yeah, it takes humility, and it takes some understanding. I think JT is extremely important to us for what we want to do. Obviously, I'm having a great season, but then I have to just think, what's the big picture? And sometimes that's not easy, but I always put the team first and what the bigger picture is first. So it's just kind of a feel thing. You kind of feel it out, and then you take some time. When to be aggressive, how the teams guard, and kind of reassessing all of that stuff, because it's different. This team is different, but it's been okay. It's been okay. We found ways to win, and we just got to continue to do that. We got some games left. It's not going to be perfect. I think we could have won in a better facet tonight against the Suns, but it's going to take a little bit of that, that growth factor by the time we get to the playoffs. So I got to be patient. Everybody got to be patient. This is not the best version that you are watching right now. So we just take it one day at a time.
There it is. We got the audio. See, stick with us. We'll figure it out.
There you go.
Jaylen Brown answering a good question, I thought, from Bobby. Just trying to get in his brain a little bit, just figure out where he's at mentally with, all these things kind of changing around him. And obviously Brown is a pretty steady, I think he would call himself a pretty steady guy, right? At least tries to be. And so how are these changes good for him, good for the team? How is he adjusting? How is he sort of balancing? I think is one of the words is his own personal success with the team's ultimate goals, Bobby. And I think he said all the right things. I really do. I think his approach is exactly what it needs to be in order for this team to go where they want to go. And at the same time, I think this was a good example of you can actually have it both ways. You can still be that MVP type player, and the Celtics can still win a really tough game and beat a good quality team, and multiple players can have a say in that. I thought Pritchard played a big role tonight. I thought obviously Tatum did at points, and guys did what they needed to do. And I think we talk about roles. I think everybody kind of played a lot, looked the part of their role tonight, and ultimately it ended with Brown taking over, Bobby.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You can have it all here in a game like this, and everybody can get a little piece of the pie. And I think more often than not, Brown should have the biggest. And I know they hate to talk that way, or they hate to field questions to that, line. But
I think it was
a real one.
The right way. Yeah, it was.
It's a real one with this team, because I know they play an egalitarian offense, and a lot of it's who has the best matchups and the ball goes where it needs to go. So I think that helps with everything. Joe and obviously a couple coaches before him have set up the offense well in that sense. At the same time, there is going to be a tone setter. There's going to be a guy running possessions most of the time that they're out there together. And that could change night to night. Joe acknowledged that after the game. And even in the flow of a night, they shifted things toward Brown late in this game pretty aggressively. So you feel good about all that being the case. At the same time, it's different. Tatum, for the last handful of years here, has been the guy setting the tone offensively with the ball in his hands, running pick and rolls and all that. Feels like Brown's the better option in most scenarios right now. And that's not a knock on Tatum. We all understand what the reality is for him at the moment. It's not saying that that's going to be the case forever. But this season, given what Brown's done, and given what Tatum looks like so far, it's a no-brainer almost. And credit to Tatum. The onus is going to be on him for sacrificing here and trying to continue to funnel opportunities toward Brown. And I do think,
credit
Jimmy,
to Tatum.
that
Wow,
he
classic. Trying to give the credit to Tatum, Bobby, and unbelievable.
Well, I'll give him credit because I feel like he's been off the ball quick. He's making decisions and playing within the flow of the offense, and his passing has been so additive to this group. And I know he's still taking his shots and he's trying to get himself going, and he's had his opportunities in isolation. But when they're both out there together, the numbers have been really good. Well, not really good, but good enough. And I think a big reason for that is that Tatum has deferred to some degree. And I think even in his answers here, you see that he understands he's probably not going to be the full version of himself this year. He still has to be aggressive. He still has to be a threat. But this team needs to play through Jaylen and White and Pritchard, right? It was all three of those guys running the offense at the beginning of the year, and they should continue to get opportunities to do so. I mean, they're playing some minutes without Brown and Tatum, Jimmy, early in second quarters to continue to get White and Pritchard opportunities.
It almost feels like right now the best version of Jayson Tatum is a collected one that can really distribute and can really be steady and maybe
do it all.
Yeah, do it all, but don't try to overdo it all. I think, again,
and there's nothing wrong with that. The Tatum fans are going to freak out when they hear that, or feel like it's a diss to him, or I think he understands what this season's about, Sherrod, and where he's at and where Jaylen's at and the group before them. I mean, he talked about it on the podcast and all his commentary leading up to his return that he doesn't want to screw this up. And I think so far there's been disruptive moments, right? When you're not shooting well and you're trying to get a rhythm and the team's force feeding you in moments to get you going, that can be disruptive. But overall, especially in the starting lineup minutes, he's playing a role to some degree.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing about Tatum is understanding your role, executing your role, and just embracing it. And he's done that. I think he knows that at some point he's going to be, close to being pre-injury Jayson Tatum. But he's not there yet. And that's okay. You're not supposed to. It should take more than a handful of games for him to get back to where he was. But to his credit, he's making the most of the minutes that he's playing, doing a lot of things to help this team win games. And he's doing them at a relatively high level, showing very few signs of just being limited, or maybe most important, thinking about what he's supposed to do. He's just playing. That's the one thing that I was most concerned about. Not so much him getting hurt again, but him being concerned that he would get hurt and not play his best basketball. That just hasn't been the case, and that's been really good to see him play the way we know Jayson Tatum can play.
The rebounding's been great. The passing's been awesome. He's not turning it over at all, Jimmy. And the defense is impactful. So you might not get the shooting and scoring, but those four other things can do a lot for you.
Well, that's just it. And if he does focus a little bit more on those other things, and Jaylen Brown is, one of the guys that benefits from that. I mean, Tatum can make so many players better on the court. If Jaylen Brown's one of those guys, Bobby, my next question to you that I asked Sherrod earlier, is the MVP conversation over? Really, is it over for Jaylen Brown? I mean, you've mentioned the stats and how his stats have dipped and his points scoring has dipped. Is that enough to just completely take him out of that conversation? Or another scenario, the Celtics end up with the 1 seed. Let's say they do it early enough before the end of the year where the votes haven't all been casted yet. Jaylen Brown is still considered the one kind of leading them there, although the addition of Jayson Tatum obviously is helping them win games and getting them into that number 1 seed. I think it's safe to say that Jaylen Brown has done enough prior to Tatum's arrival to warrant that discussion continuing. It was a discussion. I'm not saying he was ever the front runner, but I think depending on who you talk to, let you know just how close he was to in that top 3 to 5 category there. Does the narrative change if they end up as the best team in the East and Jaylen Brown is the one who is still leading them there offensively?
The narrative's built already. What he's done with Tatum out, LeBron's comments.
But the narrative now seems to be it's over for him now that Tatum's back.
And it is, if Shea and Jokic qualify, those guys will beat him out, and he'll be third or fourth or fifth, whatever that is, depending on what Victor and Cade do down the stretch, because they're obviously great candidates too. But in my mind, he secured a top 5 finish, and Shea can only miss a handful of more games and remain eligible. I think Jokic can only miss 1 more game and stay in the mix for this thing. So he's going to need breaks. He always was going to. But the fact that he's in the mix this late in the season says enough in itself. And I think, you're not always going to remember the 3rd, 4th, or 5th place guy in these votes. And there's probably been some obscure names that got up that high in the voting. And it doesn't matter much if it's just going to be all Shea and Jokic and among first place votes.
Right.
At the same time, it's mattered to the Celtics. And I think that's why we stress his name so much in this conversation, is because we know watching this year how important he's been to stabilizing everything. The analytics might not scream that, or he doesn't put up some of the counting stats that some of the best players do in the league this year. But the reality is, Jimmy, we've watched it all year. He's played almost every game for a team that was missing its best player. He had to step into that top player, top assignment for defender roles and maintain and even build on what he was doing in the past in that spot. And I think that narrative, even though it's hard to quantify with numbers, should mean a lot in this conversation. The fact that this team wasn't supposed to be any good this year should matter there. So I love what Cade has done this season. I know the defensive numbers for Victor are going to be off the charts, but I've felt pretty good for a lot of this year. And obviously of late, the numbers are going to start dipping here, Sherrod, and he might fall lower in this conversation. Detroit looks like they're going to solidify that 1 seed, barring a collapse. So I think realistically, you could say he's 4th behind Cade. In that spot. Victor should get some consideration for 4th alongside Jaylen in my mind. At the same time, if the Celtics finish strong here and he mostly maintains those numbers and has more games like this and also stays clearly atop the totem pole of what they're doing, in terms of their offensive hierarchy this season, I think 3rd and even a higher slot, if one of those other guys falls out, should be in play here. So Jimmy, I think enough can happen down the stretch for him to get in the conversation again. But at the moment, he's probably 3rd, 4th, 5th, maybe even a little lower, depending on who you talk to. Because I know some people like Mitchell and Anthony Edwards cases as well.
You're never going to get me
this year.
You're never going to get me to take Mitchell or Anthony Edwards.
No, I wouldn't.
Season over Brown, with the season Brown's had, with the players around him and the narrative going into the year, it's just not going to happen. I don't care who you are.
Where would you put him?
If the Celtics end up with a 1 seed, I think he goes above Cade. And listen, I'm a little biased, I think. I've been obviously paying a lot of attention.
You got the hard hat on.
Listen, you're asking a guy with the Celtics hard hat on who would take. I understand if you're statistics based, Jaylen Brown doesn't qualify. But I think, talking about the word valuable, and I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with the votes where it should be a closer vote than I think it will be. I don't think ultimately Jaylen Brown is going to win it, but I think it should be a lot closer. And I think if you're somebody that has a vote, you really do need to take into consideration where a lot of people thought this team was going to be this year and where they ended up. And again, I'm one of those guys that maybe that's why I'm fully on board Jaylen Brown train, because I was so anti where I thought this team would be. And
there's a world where he can win here down the stretch, Jimmy. And it's going to take a lot of breaks. But the fact that he's in that position is unimaginable. Even Tatum at his peak in a couple seasons here hasn't gotten that close to being considered. How many people have we heard now? Tracy McGrady, Stephen A., I think, has said, right, Sherrod? Like, there are a lot of people who say Jaylen should be MVP this year.
LeBron didn't say
LeBron.
Yeah, exactly.
LeBron came pretty close to saying
it. Kind of close.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and it says, as much as we can talk about what we see and Joe Mazzulla, the guys that have to compete against him, what they say really matters, because they're the ones who aren't going to sugarcoat it as far as how good a player is. And Jaylen has shown himself to be up to the challenge, looking some of the best players in the eye and playing as well or better than many of them. And again, Jaylen, he's doing the things you're supposed to do to position yourself to be an MVP candidate. And again, it'll be fascinating to see how the Celtics finish this season and how far can they go with Jaylen Brown leading the charge. Because even though Tatum's back and he's going to at some point get back to doing even more things that are Jayson Tatum-like, until then, this is Jaylen Brown's ship. He's running this show. And we saw in the Phoenix, the one game where they actually had to do some late game execution. And I thought both of those guys did a lot of really good things that you like going
Oklahoma
forward.
City too, Sherrod. I mean, how great was he late in that game, man? The
Mhm.
whole game running things without Tatum. So, check that box too of late, things that Jaylen has done to keep this team afloat through Tatum's return. And then I think you give some credit, Jimmy, also for him being willing to make room for Tatum and fitting him into things and the team continuing to win without Tatum playing at his best. So all that should matter. It's not enough to overcome what Jokic and Shea have done statistically in their teams and all of that. And obviously those teams have the head-to-head benefit of the doubt over Boston too here. Victor's got a big one too, the performance that he had over Boston last week. So it's going to be packed. It's going to be tight. There are going to be a lot of people with a lot of different perspectives on these things, as there always are in MVP races. But he's going to finish what? No lower than 5th, I would think, realistically.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Right. And I think that's where
games played should
where
matter
he should
too,
be.
Jimmy.
Right. Games played should matter. It does matter. It literally eliminates people. So that's part of it. But listen, I mean, it's hard to talk about Jaylen Brown's MVP season and not at least acknowledge what SGA is doing, what Wemby's doing, what Cade's done in Detroit. Like all these fans of these teams are having the same conversation right now on why their guy should be MVP. So we get it. But I think ultimately, Bobby, you said it. The fact that we're even having this discussion speaks volumes about the season Jaylen Brown's had, speaks volumes about where the Celtics team is at compared to where we thought they would be. And if what Jaylen Brown says is true, he's got bigger, aspirations right now than, winning MVP. And I think, it'd be great if you could have both things. But I think if you were asking what he wants, I'm hoping that he would say a second NBA championship. I think he would. And so we'll believe him on that one. And that's probably going to do it for this show, guys. I want to say we talked a little bit about March Madness earlier. Garden Report always does their own March Madness. So if you think you've got something for our March Madness Garden Report bracket, leave a comment on our YouTube comments after the show. Tweet us at, Real Bobby Manning, at Sherrod Blakely, at Jimmy_Toscano.
We should have some good stuff this year.
Tweet Xanis, wake him up. Tweet Noah. We've got plenty of things we could add to this bracket. So if you think of anything, leave it in the comment section. I don't know if it'll make it if you leave it in the chat, but if you leave it in the YouTube comments, we'll see it if you tweet it our way. So that's probably going to do it for us underneath the video. Leave a comment underneath the video. So a Celtics with another big win tonight, Bobby. Sherrod, they're back on track, back home. A fun one on Wednesday night. It's always fun when the Warriors come to town. And Porzingis
had 30 tonight.
Big game. Should get some cheers from the crowd. He was a favorite here in Boston in his short time. But
sounds like Horford's going to be out, though, which is a bummer. I'm sure he'll still get his applause as well, but he's hurt. So I don't think he's going to play tomorrow here.
Horford going to get his tribute?
He will.
He will.
I think they both will. Everyone from that championship team.
Everybody who wins a title gets a tribute. That's been a rule, and as it should be. So that'll be a nice moment. You'll be there, Bobby?
As I always am.
So we should have you guys covered from start to finish on Wednesday. I want to thank Sherrod for hanging out past midnight here. Bobby, thanks for jumping on with us from the Garden. We want to thank PrizePicks for being such great sponsors. And we've now got team picks on PrizePicks, Bobby. You don't have to limit it to just a player anymore. Pick your team just in time for March Madness on Thursday. You got some teams that you have some good feelings about. You can now go that route. So that's really fun. So download PrizePicks, use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup or play your team, whatever you want to play, you can play. We will see you all Wednesday. for Sherrod, for Bobby, for Harrison. Thanks for the help for Amit and Richie at the TD Garden and getting us those videos. You want to thank them. Peace.